Okay, now I have a bone dry one. This one I have gold angel hair. And you'll see that it takes a second to get this thing wet. And once it's wet, boom, there it goes. No problem. And you see how awesome that gold looks. Great action. Keels perfectly. So it's really just a matter of taste. You like the pearl flash, you like the gold flash, you can go for silver. You can do anything you want. Anywhere where you have those little white bait fish, this is a great fly. Hi, and welcome to Slick Willy Fly. Today we are going to do a beach ghost. This is an awesome, short, it's not more than 2 inches, little white bait fish. Perfect, perfect, perfect for just casting into the surf. This is basically Craftfur and gold angel hair. That's pretty much it. I did flat braid on the body so that if the hook shank should show, you can see it. In this one, I used a gold flat braid. I don't see it now. And then I used red red epoxy eyes, these tiny little eyes. I don't have the original packaging, but I'm assuming these look like they're about 3 or 4 millimeters. And a little bit of UV resin just to lock them in there. That's it. Hook is a B10S Stinger in size 4. Thread, I used 140, I'm sorry, this is not 140. This is 220 uni, 220 denier uni. And that's pretty much it. The one I'm going to tie up, I'll do white again because I think these little white bait fish, I mean, these are pretty much everywhere on earth. They're awesome. But instead of using the gold, I think I'm going to either switch to pearl or silver just to have a little variety. So don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. These things are awesome. I mean, this little short little Craftfur bait fish, I mean, I can't imagine anywhere on planet Earth that this would not catch fish. This is an awesome fly. So again, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Let's change that camera angle, have a sip of our cocktails, and let's tie this fly. Okay, so let's go ahead and pop this out. And we'll put in a B10S Stinger in a size 4. That looks pretty straight. And again, like I like to do on a lot of my flies, I'm going to go ahead and put a little touch of super glue on the hook. And then we're going to go ahead and use the thread to move that around. Just get a little good coverage on the hook. So again, this is a super simple fly, super easy to tie, but this is a great fly. You know, for me, this is great for just walking the beach or on the inshore, anywhere where you have those whitish bait fish. It's a great fly. I'm using 220 denier white uni thread. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. So while I give that a second to set up, I'm going to get my first clump of Craftfur ready. And you don't really need a lot. This is just the tail. Really going to do this in 2 clumps. But I am going to pull out all the shorts like I do on all my Craftfur flies. And now this will pretty much determine the length of the fly. Once I have the tips kind of aligned, I pull out the crazy longs. And restack them. That looks better. So my length, I mean, I guess you could say a little bit more than a hook shank, like maybe 1¼ hook shanks, something like that. And now I'm going to trim all this excess off so that we don't have a huge clumpy body. Couple of loose wraps, making sure that I like where it is, which I do. That's about good right there. Making sure that I'm equally distributed on the hook. And now I'm going to go ahead and crank this tight. And instead of wrapping up all this loose material here, I think I'm going to go ahead and trim it. Probably could have trimmed that a little bit closer when I trimmed it before attaching it. I just don't want to have a really clumpy body. Alright, so the next step is putting in my flat braid in silver. The one that I had in the vise, like you know, that one was in gold. Silver, gold, whatever colors you like. I think they both work great. So now it's just touching turns, moving my way up the shank. It's nice when you have this little rotary function. You don't have to get all the way to the front because you are going to tie on that wing. You know, this in the end is a very sparse fly, and I really like sparse. I think that when there's a little bit of wind, or it's just easier to cast, especially if you're using a lighter fly rod. All right, so now I've got my tail done, I've got the body done. I'm really at the point where now I need to go ahead and make this, basically it's the equivalent of a Craftfur brush, but brush maybe isn't the right word. I have a video on how I do this, and I will put the link to the video on how I make this. But at the end, what it ultimately is, it's a Craftfur dubbing loop, is really what it is. Now I need to make a dubbing loop. I'm going to get my bobbin holder, get my thread out of the way, get my spinner, I'm going to, as carefully as I can, get this material as evenly as possible onto that dubbing loop. Now we got to spin this up just like that. Another spin, and now you need to take a second at this point, and you need to pick out as much of this as you can. The more you pick out now, the better your fly is going to look and fish. And I like using this little, it's this little comb that I'm using. I bought it at a pharmacy. It's for picking lice out of hair. Alright, that looks good. So now I'm going to stroke all the fibers back. And again, I'm going to use my rotary function. And I'm just going to start wrapping this the same as I would if I was using marabou and a big tasty fly. If you've watched my videos, you know exactly what I mean. And by doing it this way, you really make this Craftfur pretty durable. Much more durable than if I would have just tied it on. I think it's actually much more durable than even a reverse tie. The only other option for this fly for me would have been a reverse tie. And you just work it all the way up, just like that. And once you're to the eye of the hook there, I like to try to just pack it nice and tight as I can. Get my holder out of the way. Now I trap that thread. And you can cut your dubbing loop off. Now it's just clean up this knot in the front and a whip finish. You could at this point, if you wanted, you could either use a marker or change threads or do something if you were interested in giving this a different a thread color in the head. Since I'm going to use UV resin, I don't need to put a second whip finish in. Alright, so the next step, you can either use a needle or you can use that same brush, whatever. I don't really know what the name of that thing is that I used to comb it out earlier. They work great. They're a little bit tougher to use when you have a hook in the way, so I tend to use a needle at this phase a little better, but I'll go in both directions. And now you end up with this awesome baitfish shape. Doesn't have a ton of flash, but it has just what I think is just the right amount of flash. And the only thing left to do now, in my view, is put some eyes on it. You could fish this fly exactly the way it is right now, and this thing would probably be an assassin. But I like the details. It's going to go in my fly box, so I want to put the eyes on it. Alright, so for eyes, I'm going to use, where'd they go? I'm going to use these very small, I don't have the original packaging, but these things are tiny. They can't be more than 3 or 4 millimeters wide. And these are the eyes that I've selected for this fly. Doesn't really matter which side I do first. Because I've had these for a little while, I'm going to go ahead and start with a dab of super glue. And for this super glue, I'm going to use gel. And I'm going to put it right where the knot meets the material. And now, as carefully as I can, this is where, if you have very steady hands and very good fingers, this works so much easier. I try to keep my fingers out of this as much as possible. Seems like every time I get my fingers into the super glue, it just turns into a mess. So that came out pretty darn good. Happy with that. Now we're going to repeat the process on the opposite side. You know, sometimes you get lucky and the adhesive on the eye is enough, but I'm not planning on using a ton of UV resin on these eyes. I am going to put a little bit of UV resin on and a little bit on the knot. So I don't really want to I don't want to risk that the eyes will come off. And you notice that I'm using my tools much more than I'm using my fingers. That's good. That I like. Alright. So I can get that out of the way. Take a second to vacuum. Gives the super glue a second to set up. A sip of my cocktail. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my UV resin, and I'm just going to put a drop right on the eye itself. And I have a needle that I use. Wow, that thing ran. I have a needle that I use just for resin. I have to put a little more on there because it all ran to the opposite side. It actually did. In the end, I've done what I wanted, and that's I got resin on the knot and on the eyes. And I wanted it to get from the eyes onto the material. I'll put just a little bit more. Now I'm going to get my lamp. Alright, so there it is. You know, this is a really simple fly. I'm going to go ahead and put the link to that, how I made that dubbing loop brush, Craftfur brush. I have a video where I show how I do that a little bit more clearly. I'll put the link in the description below. But this fly, you know, freshwater, saltwater, pretty much any species. I can't even imagine a species of fish that won't go after this fly. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Good luck catching, and we'll see you on the next video.